Hey everybody, welcome to Chin Fat. In this episode, this is going to be one of the final, not the final, but one of the final episodes in this process of editing a project, sound mixing it, and color grading. In this episode, we are specifically getting into color grading. The following episode, the final episode, will be on how to export this project, so you can have like an edited piece that you've edited, that you've sound mixed, that you've color graded, and you could use that as a resume piece to show that you're capable of editing, sound mixing, color grading, creating titles, etc. So you could totally use that as a part of your reel. So when I started out with this, your exercise files, by the way, are all proxied files. So I'm not giving, it's too large of a file, be somewhere over like 130 gig download. So I did not provide the actual footage for this. I don't have the storage space for it online. I'm not paying for it, so sorry. But if you were doing the high quality media here and you did the proxies, you would actually go up to this little switch right here and turn your proxies to off. And right now that's on, that's off, but I am using the actual proxy files like you guys are at this point, but I did show the first episode on how to proxy those files within Premiere Pro and switch those back and forth right here. If you've got the high quality and you've created the proxies, that little switch would work there. But right now I am just stuck with the proxy file, so I'm going to bring it to the stage that you guys are at with the exercise files. So just an FYI, if you have any questions on that, let me know. So let's get started on this. First of all, my arrangement here, if you're in a different arrangement like assembly mode or something like that, or the sound mixing arrangement, you'll go up to Window, Workspaces, and hit Color. That is also found over here. I'm in the top right hand corner, this little Workspace drop down here. You can click on that and tell it to arrange for color, which will give us a couple things. It will give us it'll open up a control panel, effect controls panel here to look at the effects that we're creating when we do the color grade. And then you've got the Lumetri Scopes. This should be showing 4 different scopes here like this by default. So you can get rid of these by right-clicking. You can show specific ones by right-clicking. Like I don't use the histogram. I think their histogram is horrible in this. Their other 3 scopes are pretty legit, but their histogram is a garbage histogram in my opinion. The DaVinci Resolve has a much better version of an RGB histogram that works really well. But so I'm just going to right-click up here and I'm going to get rid of my histogram. Uncheck that. Now I'm left with these 3 right here to do color grading. Another thing that I've shown, and they've actually, since I started the series, they've actually had a significant update in Premiere Pro where that input LUT no longer works for your project, which is kind of weird. I like that for the entire project, but they no longer have that. You have to do it to your footage now. So let me show that difference here. So if I go up to my Lumetri color panel here, which is found when I do the color arrangement, the workspace, normally you're going to be on edit here, and any file that you select, you'll be able to edit. It'll bring these up, and then you can start doing your color grade here. But you're going to go to settings up here under the Lumetri color panel. In fact, let me close the essential sound. I had that open, so I'm going to close that just so we have the Lumetri color panel here. So I'm going to go to settings, and under settings, this used to be, the input LUT used to be found under the project here in the earlier version. They still have that here, right here under source clip. So we were able to add the input LUT right here into the project settings, but now you have to have it and it will just do it for the entire project whether you have any clips selected or not. But now with this update, you actually have to select the clips, which makes kind of sense because you don't want to, if you have mixed footage, you don't want to have one LUT applied. Like if say you're using a Red camera and an Alexa camera or a Canon camera, and you have mixed media that you're using in your project, you don't want to apply that LUT to your entire project for all the cameras, and that wouldn't make sense. So it's a little bit inconvenient, but I see why they did it. So the first thing that you would do before you even started your project now with the new workflow, with the new update, is you would select all the original footage that you have here, and then you could add an input LUT. So now I can go up to input LUT with those files selected, and I can change those, and I can add my LUT and select it, browse it, or here it is right there that I've used. I'm going to check mark it there, and it would add those to each one of these clips. If I open up each one of these clips now, they have an input LUT added to each one, and it has that nice kind of contrasty look. And then when you were done, you would grab all these individual clips and go up to your input LUT and add none. You don't want to input it because now we're going to color grade it. So if you do have that LUT applied, you can go and uncheck that input LUT. And also, if you're using the raw data, you can just go up here and say Color Manage Auto Detected for log and raw media, and it should detect that this is proxy footage, so it's not recognizing it and it's not adding the LUT. So it's nice to just go up and uncheck that, then you can start color grading. But I'm going to start out by showing you a little trick here. because this was shot, and we shot it with a specific LUT, and that's that LUT that I have here. So this is going to be pretty simple to color grade because we kind of shot it all in camera, got everything the way we wanted it in camera with that LUT applied in camera. But then when you bring the footage into Premiere Pro, it reverts back to the log footage, so rather than adding the LUT. But the newer RED cameras even preserve the LUT inside the media card that they've shot on. The older RED cameras don't do that, but some of the newer cameras, like the Komodos, do that, which is nice because then you can just grab that LUT right out of the media folder. So anyway, all right, let's get started here. I'm going to select the first clip here, and we're going to start working on this one here. All right, I'm going to show you how to do this with this little trick here, and then I'll show you how to do everything manually as well. I'll show you how to color grade a couple of clips manually, and then you can do the rest of the project. And it's good practice to do both, but right here, the way I want to do is I want to kind of do the way the director of photography intended, that they shot it with a LUT, they shot it accurately, they had the exposure right, they had the color temperature right, and the look that they were going for was more in camera. And that's kind of the easy way to go. So we're going to go back to our Lumetri color edit here, and then we're going to start working on this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I like to add a couple of layers of Lumetri here, and I'm going to show you why. I'm going to go down to this Lumetri color, and I'm going to go to add Lumetri color effect. Now, once again, this is the method to use is if the director of photography wanted to get that look in camera as much as possible and not leave very much work up to the colorist. So I'm going to add a Lumetri color here. I've got one already. I'm going to add another one. And for some reason, the first time you do that, it doesn't add it. You have to do it again, and now it's added. You have to do it like twice. The very first time you do it, and I don't know why, it's like activates it and then it adds. So now I have two different Lumetri color layers here. And I'm going to select the second one, and I'm going to pull this down again, and I'm going to rename the second one. I'm going to rename this one just LUT, like that. It's the camera LUT that we shot with. I'll just call it LUT. And now I've got one other right here, and I'm going to select this one, and we're going to rename that one. So that one's selected. Now I'm going to rename this one basic color. So what it's going to do is it's going to apply that LUT on the second grade, but we're going to be able to correct it before on the basic color before it even hits the LUT. So if it's too dark or too light or some different color, we can basically change that brightness level or the saturation or the color, and it will affect it before it even hits the LUT. If the LUT's coming on too strong, you can affect it before it even hits that LUT and calm it down a little bit. So I've got these two. I'm going to go to the second one, which is the LUT. And what you want to do as well is I've got this clip still selected. I've got my playhead over it. So I can tell that, so I know I can see the corrections that I'm making here. But if you go up to effect controls, you'll see that those two layers that I've added, first the basic one, and then the LUT that happens at the end of the grade. So once again, this will change the brightness levels, contrast, and the colors before it even hits that look. But we're going to add the look first, that LUT. So we're going to go up here, pull this down, choose LUT, and I'm going to go to input LUT. We're going to add by browsing. And I'm going to navigate to my production folder, and I've got this red LUT for Hush, which is part of the exercise files. Select that, open, and it adds that look to my project here. So now before I continue on here, I'm going to take that. Now that I've got that set up, I'm all ready to start working on this. I'm going to select both of these here in my effect controls panel. I'm going to select the first one, hold down Command, or it would be Control on a PC, and select the second one. I've got both of those selected. I'm going to hit Control C to copy. And then I'm going to select all my media, all my video files on the timeline. Not my titles. This is a title. These are titles. I'm just going to select just the video footage. I'm going to hold that Option and drag across all these right here. And that's the rest of my video files. I don't want my audio. I just want the video. Doesn't matter if you select the audio, but just so I know what I'm doing here. And now I'm going to move over one of these, and I'm going to do Command V or Control V. So I did a Command C over here when I selected both of these. Command C or Control C on a PC, Option, select all my video tracks, move my mouse over so I can see the change, and Command V to paste, and there's the LUT that was shot in right there. And now it looks pretty good. But then now we're going to show you how to do some basic adjustments on these things. Okay, so now that I've got that basic like layer structure pasted to each one of these clips here, you can see that I've got my Lumetri color input. I'm going to call this my input color. It's inputting before it gets to the LUT. So it inputs whatever change I do there to the LUT. So if we want to bring it up brighter, if we want to make it lighter, darker, whatever we want to do here. So we've got each one of these. We can start playing through this and see what we've got here. I'm going to mute my audio just so we can kind of look at the footage here. We'll just mute all my audio here. And I hit tilde to make this go full screen right here. So I just want to concentrate on the colors and not worry about sound here. So, all right, we're going to start on the first shot here, and I'm going to play through this and see how this looks. Let's go full screen. I'm going to hit Control tilde, and even if you're on a Mac or PC, to go with full screen, you have to hit Control, not Command. So Control tilde, holding down Control and hit tilde, and now it goes full screen. Start playing. I hit spacebar to play. It fades in. And does the pan here. No music, no anything. I've muted everything. So you just look at the color here. So, okay, that's looking pretty good. That's looking pretty good, actually, to start off with. And once again, I said this is kind of the way it was intended. But if you did want to do some changes here, if this shot seems a little too dark to you, we can go ahead and select the basic color. We're going to leave the LUT one alone. We're not going to touch that. So I'm going to go up here. And actually, rather than just select it in here, you do have to go up to your Lumetri color panel, grab these layers, and grab the one that I'm correcting. It doesn't work if you select it over here. You have to select it over in the panel. And now it will affect that basic color before it hits the LUT here. So let's even turn this off. I'm going to turn off the LUT just to show you what's going on. Turn off this effects tab right there, and turn off the effects tab right there, and nothing's happening. Oh, and the reason why is because I've got this one selected. This you kind of have to be careful with. This one is selected right now, but it's not the one that I'm grading here. I want to grade this one, so you have to have your playhead over and select it. If you see no changes, it's probably because you have the wrong one selected. So a good lesson to learn there. So I'm going to pull this down. I've got the LUT, turn this off. That's without the LUT applied. So I'm going to turn that back on. And now we're going to select the first one and start coloring here and start working. Let's say I think this is a little too dark. I can just go under exposure and I can turn this up a little bit. Or even if the contrast seems to be too heavy, you can grab the contrast and turn the contrast down. Or if it doesn't seem heavy enough, you can grab it and turn it up. Let's say we want to increase the contrast just a little bit to kind of hide the darks a little bit more. And I'm going to grab the exposure and turn it up a little bit, and maybe a little bit more contrast. And let's say I like that look right there. And maybe even if you want to make it a little less blue, let's warm this up a little bit by grabbing our temperature and tint here under. And by the way, this is under my basic correction right here. I'm going to pull this down, and usually if I'm just doing it inputting into that LUT that I already have on it before this layer here, I've got my first color, and I'm changing it before it hits the LUT here. I'm going to grab this, and we're going to warm it up just a little bit. And look how it kind of normalizes it, makes it look, the window looks a little more warm, but it doesn't look so cold like moonlight anymore. So it just depends on the look that you're going for. And let's look at this. I'm going to turn this on and off. So this is what's happening. That's just with the LUT applied, and that's with the changes that I've made. So if you like that, you can totally do that change before it inputs the LUT. And let's say I like that look. So I want to paste it. If I want to paste that thing to my entire thing, I would repeat this process. First of all, I want to get rid of the ones that I have on there already, because if I copy and paste, it'll add to what's already been added there, and there'll be extra LUTs in it, and it won't work. So watch this. If I go select both of those, Command C to copy, and we're going to grab all these, move my mouse over it. Let's go Option or Alt and drag across those. Move my mouse over this. If I paste that onto there, it's going to look extra kind of crunchy there because it's doubled up. If you select one of these now, it's got the ones that I already copied and pasted, and then copied and pasted more, and it's compounded it and made it worse. So if I want to paste this look that I have here onto everything, I would have to grab all these here, and I'm going to right click and say remove attributes. And now I'm going to remove all the LUTs that I had on those, all the Lumetri colors that I had pasted on there, and now these are back to normal. So now I can go Command V or Control V and paste, and it pastes my new look. I want to have a little bit more exposure, a little more contrast, and also not so cold. And if you like that look, cool. Then you're good with that. And then you can see if there's anything that you need to do to match it here. So let's go back to what we had before. My basic color. I'm going to reset this. I'm going to hit this little reset effect right there, and we're back to where we were before. So now I'm going to copy these two, Control C, Command C, and Option drag these ones, and Command V and paste it on there. Now for this, I like the color. I'm just going to look through, just play through it to make sure that as it cuts from shot to shot, that everything looks good here. So I think that looks good. See, this one could tend to be a little darker because this one seems darker to start with, and then this one seems brighter. So once again, I'm going to go up. For this file, I'm just going to do basic luminance corrections here. I'm going to pull this down, go to my, oops, and I undid that to where I got rid of this name, so I got to change that name back. Let's go here, rename it, color, change. I think that's what we called it before. So I'm going to select all these and right click and remove the attributes and paste my new ones with the new names on there. So grab these two, Command C or Control C, Option or Alt to drag across these, and Command V or Control V to paste. All right, let's go there. So this one I want to have not so bright here. So I've got it selected. I've got my playhead over it. Very important to have it selected and playhead over it. And we can go up to the exposure and just turn the exposure down a little bit. And maybe, looks like we need maybe a little bit more contrast, and contrast it up there and get that exposure where it looks a little darker. Okay, I like that. So we play through it. Let's see what the next shot looks like. And I like this shot here. Looking good. I'm going to get to the end and compare this as it cuts from the next front shot to the next. This one, I want the same level of exposure that I had on this one here. See how that's darker than this one? Let's look at the exposure. Exposure was at -0.2, and then the contrast was at 14. So let's go to this one, select it, and we can go -0.2, and then we can go 14 on the contrast, and we've got a match. Another way of doing that would be to select this. We're going to go to, let's go to my color change one right here. I'm just going to delete that. I'm going to go back to this one, and I'm going to copy the color change one off this one so I don't have to remember those numbers. Command C, go back to this one, select it, and go Command V and paste it. It pasted it after the LUT. You just have to drag it and put it right before the LUT right there. And there we go. So now as I play through this, let's go to the next shot. That shot looks good. Let's see when he sits up. I don't care if his face is dark when he's laying down, but when he sits up, might need a little bit more exposure. So select it, go up to our color change before it hits the LUT, and change my exposure there. There we go. Okay, and that one looks too bright, so I can select it. So I'm just doing some basic exposure changes here, and grab our exposure and tone it down a little bit, maybe a little more contrast. There we go. As now it cuts to his face. So I can continue going through this. So this would be a pretty a simple process of color grading this project by adding the LUT, especially if it was shot that way. That's really the way it's meant to be. And just kind of matching the exposure from shot to shot until everything looks good and consistent. So I can continue doing that, but let's show you a little bit more kind of the hands-on approach. If you want to kind of really control everything yourself, I'm going to select all my video here. I'm going to hold that Option, drag across these. I'm going to hold down Shift and select this. We're going to do this without a LUT. We're going to do this all from scratch here. I'm going to right-click and say Remove Attributes. We're going to remove the Lumetri color and the LUT there. And we got rid of that. And now let's start at the beginning. Okay, I usually like to start with my scope. So if I'm going to be doing this manually, I like to really control my features here. So we're going to go to our waveform. First of all, I'm going to uncheck our vector scope and the RGB parade. We're going to go for the waveform. This is your waveform, which reads your exposure levels from left to right. This is your image from left to right. As we move over, it's pretty dark with a little bits of highlights here from the books and stuff. And then as it gets far enough over, this is the window. And then this is the second window right there. So we're getting some, and this is basically 0 is black, 50 is middle gray, and 100 is white. So imagine this from a black level going up to middle exposure all the way up to 100. This is a very underexposed shot, but intentionally so, because it's supposed to be a dark movie. But what we could do here is we could start to work on contrast a little bit. We can go, and I like to use the curves. This gets a little advanced, but I like to use the curves for this to really control it. This is your black node down here. This is your white node. And once again, this goes from a gradient from black to middle gray to white. And this will be your turn it up area, and this will be your turn it down area. So what you can do is your darks, if you don't want details to completely disappear in the blacks, you can grab this node and drag it to the right and maybe get it right around like what would be considered, this is an IRE scale. These are measured by IREs, which stands for Institute of Radio Engineers, that made this standard for measuring exposure levels. And the reason why you got colors in here is because this is reading your color channels, your red, green, and blue channels. We can turn that off and just read our luminance by right-clicking, go to waveform type, and tell it to read Luma. Now it's just showing our luminance levels from 0 to 100 IRE. So we drag this down a little bit. We're turning the dark node down and redefining them, getting them a little bit more dark here. We can grab our highlights and drag them up. There are really no whites, bright whites in this that we would have wanted, but this will offer a little bit more exposure. I'm just going to bring this up to the left. But now we're going to create on a curve what is called contrast. We're going to go up on our shadows a little bit from black to kind of like not as dark shadows here. I'm going to click a node and I'm going to grab this and drag it down. It is bringing all this stuff down from my shadows without crushing my dark levels. That node right here is a stopper node. It keeps from everything from going down to 0 and losing all that detail. But now I can move up and put some highlights right around maybe here, I'm guessing, and grab them and drag them to the left and boost them up, and we create what's called a contrast curve. So that contrast curve, now I can play with these and kind of get the level of contrast. Contrast is spreading basically the distance out between the, let's turn off my title here because I don't want to reading my title right now. We can choose how contrasty we want, how exposed we want it to be by moving these nodes around here, and we create what's called this S curve, which is darkening the darks and brightening the brights. And it does a further spread between the brighter parts of the image and the darker parts of the image. Let's uncheck this and see how it got flatter when I stopped reading. It's flatter, it's closer together. All the grays are, all these colors are kind of defined as kind of this darker area down here. So we're just going to check mark this and look at that, how it spreads it out further. And we can even bring our highlights a little more aggressive just to create a little more contrast. And then grab this node and drag it like this and spread that contrast out. Now this is getting too contrasty. I'm starting to lose detail here. So we can drag this back and maybe just bring the contrast back to where we get a little detail that's in the darks. And I like that shot right there. I like that look. Now, another thing that we can do is we can work with a color temperature. I'm going to go to our parade. Our parade is going to show your 3 channels. You have 3 channels that you shoot with video, which is going to be red, green, and blue. And it's showing the brightness levels of each individual channel. So here's my red, here's my green, here's my blue. And right now it's showing that I've got a little bit more in the highlights boosted in the reds, which are these windows right here. If you want those to show as more red, you can go to the channel here, the red channel, and we can turn up the luminance brightness level for the red. And that will bring a little bit of more warmth that makes it look like a warm street light if we increase those reds there. And we could put a stopper node down here and say, I want my mids to be kind of in that area where the whole thing doesn't look warm, but I want the windows to look a little bit more warm. And that's in the red channel there. So drag this back and look at the windows there. As we move this over, we will have to push that node over and that'll boost a little bit more warmth into it, maybe right about there. There's another way of doing that, but this shows you now that I have a big prominence in red. And those are mostly in the windows there. Because this area over here is about the same as the red, and the blue is about the same as well. So those are kind of in the same areas geographically. Just the window looks more warm now. So another thing we could do here is we could go to our saturation, which is our vector scope, and look at our vector scope. And right now it's showing about, from the middle point here, this is completely desaturated. If we grab this clip and drag our saturation down under the basic correction, grab our saturation, drag it down, look how it kind of all sucks down to a point there. I have pushed some other stuff up on my curves here, changing the colors. So this still does have some color in it. Let's turn that off and show you a desaturated image. So our basic correction right here, we've grabbed our saturation all the way down. It's black and white, and you'll see everything sucked into a point there. So if I grab that and boost it out, notice how the colors start growing outwards, and we're getting more saturation. So we could do that. We could even, let's try a couple things here. I'm going to go back down to my curves. I'm going to turn that back on. We're going to go up to our basic correction, and we're going to, let's add a little bit, but I am getting some magenta colors in here from pushing that light up on the curve. So let me kill that for right now. I'm going to reset. I'm going to double click on that red line and get it back to normal. Because yeah, it's making more of a magenta-ish color in here. And let's see what happens as we increase the saturation. So I'm going to go to our saturation. I'm going to boost that up. And we can see actually it's boosting all the colors here. We're getting more of a red-yellow color boosting up and more of a bluish color. And if you wanted to look more moonlightish, look at the difference between this and 100. Let's put it back to 100, 100, and look at the difference. And it just really depends on what you like here. I'm going to warm that up a little bit. I can show you one. If we want the red outside or the kind of orange street light to pop a little bit more, we could boost our saturation a little more for our entire image. Let's go down to curves, and I'll show you another way of doing that. Go down to curves, and I'm going to go to hue versus saturation, hue versus hue. And we're going to choose this color right here. We're going to choose this hue and change the saturation. The way you do that is grab your eyedropper here, come up and select some of that color. It will put 3 nodes on here. See, it's that middle node is detecting it as being in the red. This is kind of a reddish color. But if we want to oversaturate that red color there, it'll do this without affecting the rest of the image. But I'm going to grab this and drag it down, and look how, and that is desaturating it right there. Dragging it down. If you drag it up, look how that becomes more warm. See, I'm just going to do it a little bit and warm that up a little bit. And look at this as I do before and after. Watch the windows here. Before and after. See, it just added a little boost to those to make it look like this warm street light and kind of contrast the bluish shades in here. And I'm liking that. So let's say that's my shot right there. Let's turn this on and off. I'm going to go to my effect controls and turn this Lumetri color off and then on and show you the difference before and after. Peace. All right, let's cut to the next shot here. I've disabled this track because I disabled my titles here, but I'm going to click on this and bring this back. And I zoom into this. And now I'm going to start grading and doing the same on this. If you want to compare shots here, you can go up to the comparison view, click on that, and you'll show us side by side here. If we grab this and drag it into my first shot, this is your whole timeline right here. You don't grab this in and put it on something that I can compare it to, like right there. That's good. So now I'm going to start working on this same file here and try to get the same sort of look. So once again, if I want to use my scopes, I can go to let's bring up my waveform, my parade, and my vector scope here, and we can start color grading. So I'm going to start grabbing this. Let's turn this comparison off and just start, and then we'll come back and compare it. I grab this, drag it over, and redefine my darks, get them around maybe about right there, just a little bit below 10 IRE, but not quite crushing on the bottom there, on the bottom of the waveform at 0, where details disappear in the darks. I'm going to redefine my highlights a little bit like we did before to start getting a bit of a contrast spread. And now I'm going to add an S-curve to really control this contrast. Bring down the lowlights, boost up the highlights, and you can slide these around. If it looks too bright, we can find an area that's going to make this look a little darker. Maybe let's crush darks a little more. And now we're starting to get a good contrast curve there. So we can do some of the same things. We can mess around with the saturation, add a little bit more color to this. I like that boosted up a little bit right there. You can cool it off or warm it up the same way we showed you with the light before. But I like the color. You could make this go a little bit more cool, could make it look a little bit more like moonlight. But let's look at our comparison here and see where we stand. I think that's looking pretty good. Just messing around with it that much, we've got a pretty decent look there. We could, and there's nothing warm in here. Those lights we don't see in this window, so I don't necessarily need to do that curve that I did. The curves down here, the hue versus saturation curve, to saturate those a little warmer. Let's go on to the next shot, and we'll continue doing this until we color grade this thing from beginning to end. We can, and I suggest keeping as a comparison, comparing everything to the first image, to the wide image, rather than, I don't want to compare it to the next image, because what can happen is if I compare this one and I try to get it matching this one, then I go to the next one and compare it to this one. Eventually, it's like that game of telephone where you tell a story, and as it keeps going, it slightly changes enough that by the time you get to the end, it's completely changed. Then your last grade will look completely different than your first grade. But if you keep comparing everything to your first grade here, so on this one, I'm not going to compare it to the grade that I just did. I'm going to compare it to this one and start grading here and get everything adjusted properly here and compare it to my first one. In fact, something like this does look similar enough, and what you could even try is, let's go to the effect controls, and I'm just going to copy. So let's grab from the first clip here. I'm going to select it. So very important, select it, and it's showing whatever clip you select, it shows its controls here in the effect controls. So I've got this clip selected. I'm going to copy the Lumetri color, go into this one. Let's delete the Lumetri color of this one, whatever changes I did, select it and delete it. And now I'm going to paste it and watch what happens. Command V and paste it. That looks pretty good right there. This was consistent enough. Maybe you can do a little bit just of exposure controls to get a little brighter if you want to. And then you can move on to the next shot. So I really like that one. Let's go to the next shot. This one I've done before. I've done it right here. So I can select this one. Select the Lumetri color. I've got it selected it, and then I go up to the effect controls, copy this one, move to the next one here, select it, and I'm going to paste onto that one, and now my color grade's done. Let's go to this one. And this is actually the same shot as this one here, so that makes it easy. I can select this one, Command C to copy, select this one, Command V to paste, and I'm done. So now we can play. There are some different shots in here, like this is its own shot, this is its own shot, that is its own shot. So I will want to grade those ones custom. But if you ever cut back to a frame that's exactly the same, like right here, we've already done this one where the dolly pushes up to him, which is this shot right here. Where the dolly pushes up to him, which is this one right here. So I can select this one, copy it. If you've already done it, all you have to do is, once you've graded it, you don't have to grade it all over again from scratch. You can just move over. There it is. I select it. Command V and paste, but watch this. I do have this one that's the same shot, and this one may be the same shot as well. If you want to paste it on multiple, you totally can. You can go select And then I'm going to hold down Shift and select this one, so it will select multiple, and then this one as it cuts to the baby monitor, back to this shot, back to the baby monitor, back to this shot. These shots are pretty much the same. Let's see how that does. I'm going to do Command V, paste it down those, and they look like they're pretty good. It looks like I might need to get these a little darker, but you can go through and change those exposures on there as you go. So that's kind of doing things a little bit more manually there if you want to just go through. And this is a pretty simple project to grade just because everything, the exposure was controlled. They were watching it on a monitor. They were looking at it with a LUT applied. So they were exposing to match or to make that LUT look really good. So they were exposing the camera with that LUT being displayed. So once again, they could expose it and change the color temperature until everything looked good. But then they left it, since it's one single scene, they left the settings almost exactly, pretty much exactly the same for the entire shoot, with the exception maybe changing the iris a little bit to change the look of things. Cool. So for this, I'm going to remove all of my work that I've done here, because I'm just going to do that one that I did before where I add a LUT to it, and then do the input color to do the exposure changes. So I'm going to remove attributes, remove just the lumetri color of all those, and I'm going to go through this and grade it, come back and kind of show you what I've got. Okay, so we're back, and I have gone through these. I did like the original method that I showed you, where I added, if you select one of these here, where I've done the LUT, and then the one that's inputting before that, which is the color change, where I've kind of tried to match the exposure level. Since the color temperature, I want it to be the exact same color throughout the entire project, or throughout the entire scene. So now I've got, once again, the final LUT and then the color change that happens before that, and did a little bit of exposure change throughout. So everything looks pretty good. I'm liking the way this is looking as it cuts from shot to shot here. Looking pretty good. So, all right. And if you want to be a little bit more advanced when you start doing your color grading, I do have a lot of other tutorials on color grading inside of Premiere Pro and some in DaVinci Resolve. If you're interested in those, you can check out my channel and find those out and see those. But before I end here, I do want to turn my mute off. You don't have to do that while you're coloring. I just did it more for this video. So I'm going to unmute those there. And now I'm back to where I started from. So the next and the final episode of this series is going to show you how to export these projects out. I'm going to show you how to do a master export, and then also an export for something like YouTube or some other sort of venue, depending on where you are exporting it for. If you're exporting it to YouTube, to Vimeo, to something else, and show you how to go through that process, which is pretty simple. So cool. Well, that's it for this episode. If you have any questions or comments, please post them, and thank you for watching ChinFat.